proud sponsors of the Cars Ireland YouTube channel. Cartel.ie, for car history data you can trust. Buying a used car? Get an exclusive coupon code now. See the comment section for more details.
This is the all-new Citroen e-C4, Citroen's first fully electric car for the masses. But if you're not quite ready for that yet, then never fear, because the new C4 is still available in both petrol and diesel forms. And you'll be happy to know it doesn't look much different to this one. You just lose the E badge, a flash of blue here and there, but they all look equally as funky as each other. The new C4 starts at €25,000 for the petrol model, €27,000 for the diesel, and then €32,000 for this fully electric model when you take into account current government grants. Current being an important word there because we're not quite sure just how much longer those grants are going to exist for, but that is the situation right now as of autumn 2021. Now, the new C4 is designed to do quite a lot of different things. And while it still technically sits in the C segment alongside all its old traditional rivals like the Golf and the Focus, you might have noticed that it's quite a bit chunkier than either of those two. It sits a bit higher off the ground to appeal to those SUV fans out there. Everyone, in other words. But you'll also notice it's got this very sporty sloping roofline to also give it a coupe vibe. So it's sort of like that BMW X6 look, but in a slightly more digestible form, I think. I really like it, I must say, and while I was quite a fan of the old model, I think this new model is going to be turning a lot more heads, and for all the right reasons too. If you're in the market for a C4 new or old, you can find one from one of our many trusted dealers on CarsIreland.ie via the link in the box below. So, first things first, the boot, or as they say in French, the boot. And we are packing 380 litres back here, which is exactly on par with its hatchback rivals like the aforementioned Golf and Focus. But the most impressive thing about this boot, I think, is that it's the same across the range. So whether you go petrol, diesel or electric, you're getting that same 380 litres. So they haven't just launched the battery into the boot, in other words. They've laid it nice and flat underneath, which means that there's no sacrifice in terms of space to be made for going electric. You've also got a nice handy hidden floor in which you can store your charging cables underneath nice and neatly so that they don't get interfere with or get tangled up in your shopping. A couple of shopping bag hooks here for said shopping. A nice wide practical hatchback opening. Yeah, very little to complain about here whatsoever. Backseat legroom I would call impressive for the class. I can sit quite comfortably behind myself at 167 centimetres, as indeed could someone a good bit taller than me. Headroom on the other hand, well, fine for me. I think that sloping roofline might interfere with those north of 6 foot, but for the kids who are more than likely going to be the ones sitting back here, it is just fine. In terms of squeezing a third passenger in the middle, while the bench is nice and wide, there is still quite a bit of a hump in the floor despite it being electric, so legroom for your middle seat passenger is not going to be so great, and it's definitely geared more towards the comfort of two. But two will be very comfortable because you've got some nice little features like this pull down centre armrest, complete with cup holders, magazine holders, a selection of charging options. Now, to get to the Isofix anchors, you have to access them via the zips in the upholstery, which can be a little bit fiddly to use. I do prefer a guide myself, but look, hopefully if you're using Isofix, you'll only have to do that once. And on the plus side, the doors open good and wide, which makes getting them in and out that bit easier. Up front, this is a really nicely designed cabin. It's very typically Citroen, which in my mind means it's fun, quirky, with a few nice design features thrown in and a few pops of colour. These quilted leather seats add a real touch of luxury and are super comfy too. And the infotainment I see has, in my opinion, been given a massive upgrade on the previous model. In fact, on first glance, it actually reminds me of BMW's iDrive with that sloping frame. They've also taken on board the advice of every car reviewer ever and given us back physical controls for the aircon, which both look and feel really good to use. And in fairness, all of the touch points are spot on in terms of quality, and you'll only find the questionable stuff if you really go looking for it. The ergonomics of the cabin are also really good. You've got good logical storage where you want it, a couple of cup holders under here, a spot to put your phone or indeed hide your phone if you don't want to be distracted by it. Got wireless phone charging and a good chunky steering wheel. It's just been really well executed. In terms of the usability of the infotainment system, I have had easier systems to use, and to be honest, this can be a bit of a learning curve. There are certain menus that are a little bit fiddlier to bring up than they should be, but when you do learn it, it eventually makes sense. It also comes equipped with Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, so if you really are not getting on with the system, you can just use one of those instead. Spec, as always, with Citroen is also very generous, and again, it's the same across all three versions. So whether you go petrol, diesel or electric, you still got the same choice of trim levels to choose from. And I have to say, I really like that relaxed approach they've taken to this, and that the electric version is just another powertrain, no big deal. Standard features include 18-inch alloy wheels, Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, which I just mentioned, some very impressive safety gear like lane keep assist and emergency braking, and one of the best keyless entry systems I have ever used. Now, lots of cars claim to have this feature in principle, but this is the first time that it has worked. First time, every time you just approach the car with the key in your pocket, you very audibly hear it open and hop in, and then when you're leaving the car, you simply close the door, walk away, and you can hear it lock. So there's no coming back to double check the door. You know that it's done. First time, every time. You can also add a field pack to add upgraded seats, a few more styling bits and bobs, Citroen's inbuilt dash cam, a heads-up display, and an iPad holder for your passenger. This is the top spec Flare model, which adds some even more luxurious features like this full leather upholstery, upgraded alloy wheels, and some more high-tech safety features like adaptive cruise control and blind spot monitoring. And this one starts at €36,500, again inclusive of the current government grants. The e-C4 is powered by a 50 kilowatt hour battery, which is good for 350 kilometers on paper, giving it the longest range of its PSA siblings built on the same platform like the Peugeot e-2008 and the Opel Mokka. But of course, what you get out of that 350 kilometers is massively dependent on when and how and where you're driving it. But I have to say, as guessometers go, this one has been quite accurate, and in some cases I'm actually using less kilometers than I'm traveling. And despite the poor conditions this week, I've been averaging anywhere between 12 and 16 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers, which is not bad at all. Now, the charging time from a standard 7 kilowatt hour wall box is about 7 or 8 hours, or overnight, as will be the case for most people. And it is also capable of charging at speeds of up to 100 kilowatts, meaning that you can get from 10 to 80% in about half an hour. It's a very nice car to drive, and there's none of that heaviness that you can sometimes get with other EVs that have tried to cram a much bigger battery on board. And this for me is the sweet spot between a real livable range and not carrying around excessive amounts of batteries that is then going to affect the drive quality. Instead, it feels light and agile. You've got that nice, nippy, zippy, immediate power uptake on takeoff, and it's got quite a light steering setup, which I fear will not be to everybody's taste, but I actually think it really suits the character of the car, and it does weight up at motorway speeds. Citroen are a brand that place a huge emphasis on the comfort of their drive, so I was very interested to see how this magic carpet suspension talk weighed up against the logistics of carrying a battery pack around, and I have to say, it seems they've managed it very well. It's still an extremely comfortable car to drive, not at all crashy. Does it feel like riding a magic carpet? I don't know, I've never been on one, but it's certainly not rattling my bones anyway, and I'm happy enough with that. If it sounds like it's all good news, well, it is my job to also find the stuff that's not so good. So here are 3 annoying things that I found during my week with the e-C4. The boot design leaves this big black line right across your rear window, which kind of cuts your view in half in the rear view mirror. And while it's not particularly obstructive, you can still see what you need to see. It's just really annoying. Number 2 is the heads-up display, because it's on one of those naff plastic screens, which again is just cutting up your view again with more lines, and I don't like it. 3, and probably the most heinous of all, is that when you want to adjust the volume with this shiny new knob, it does this. But here are 3 equally arbitrary good things which please me just enough to offset all that. For number 1, I'm going to go back to this passenger iPad holder, because that is genius. It's going to keep them out of your hair and stop them interfering with your DJ setup. Number 2 is this rubber boot protector thing, which anybody with kids or dogs or mucky hobbies are going to be absolutely delighted about. And number 3 is the selection of USB ports available in the back. So whether you're working off the old school connection or a Gen Zer with your fancy small cable, you'll be happy either way, until they make them smaller again. That's it from me on the e-C4, one of the more exciting electric launches of the year, I must say, and despite a few little quirks, I do really like this one, and to be honest, it's shot right up there towards the top of my list for EVs in this segment. I get strong future classic vibes off this one. What do you think of the new e-C4, or indeed the new C4 range? Let us know in the comment section below. Like and share if you enjoyed the video, and if you haven't subscribed to the channel already, then you might consider it now. Again, if you're in the market for a C4, don't forget to check out CarsIreland.ie for thousands of new and used models from Ireland's most trusted dealers. Thanks for watching.